Okay, folks, here we're ready to open. Adequate notice of this August the 13th, 2015 meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting written notice and agenda of this meeting on the bulletin board in the Municipal Building, 1000 Route 10, Township of Hanover, by hand delivering, mailing, or faxing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: Morris County's Daily Record, the Star Ledger, Hanover Eagle, and by filing same with the Township Clerk. May I have a roll call?
On roll call, Committeeman Gallagher.
Here.
Committeeman Faramasca.
Here.
Committeeman Bruno is away on business. Committeeman Capola.
Here.
And Mayor Francioli.
Here.
4 members in attendance, sir.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise and join me with Pledge Allegiance to our flag? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. At this time, gentlemen, motion to open the meeting to the public.
So moved.
Moved and seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. We will open again at the end of the meeting. At this particular time, if you'd like to address the Township Committee, you can do so from the podium, giving us your name and address for the record. Hey, Art.
Good evening. Art Linfanti, 2902 Appleton Way in Whippany. I am here to address the adoption of the ordinance number 2215, the authorization of construction of Phase 1A and Phase 1B of the connectivity plan. As the Township Committee knows, this is the first phase, I guess, of a much greater municipal-wide plan that has been adopted and made part of our master plan. That is the tireless effort of not only the Township Committee, but Jimmy Coyley from the Recreation Committee, Darren O'Connor from Open Space, Gene Pinadella from the Planning Board, Ed Schultz from the Environmental Commission, and Blaze and Jerry. Mm-hmm. I want to speak in favor of this plan, and I'd just like to talk about why I believe this is probably one of the most forward-moving steps we've made in quite some time to create some community building in town. The plan, as I said, establishes a town-wide network of on-road and off-road bicycle trails and pedestrian trails that link population centers, key destinations, schools, municipal complexes, parks, open space, and bridges many of the goals and policies set forth in the circulation plan element of the master plan, and goals and action items established in the open space and recreation plan, which was updated in 2011. The goal of the plan is to interconnect the township's greenways, trails, and other open space areas, and really does capitalize on this municipality's investment in open space. It builds upon easements, maintenance, and existing improvements associated with Patriots Path. This is something, as everyone here knows, has been near and dear to Gene's heart for a very long time, and he's worked rather tirelessly on it. It promotes economic growth by capitalizing on Hanover's outdoor amenities. It encourages walking, bicycling as viable modes of transportation for all residents and visitors, and it reduces vehicular traffic congestion on the roads during peak hours with a particular focus on our large corporate campuses. And it promotes Hanover as a healthy community, which is a big issue these days, and certainly with our millennium group coming in and moving through, that's something that's very important to them. And it provides, I think, a much-needed connection between the residents of Whippany and Cedar Knolls.
And other towns as well.
Well, I'm going to get there.
All right, I'm sorry to jump ahead on your. Go ahead.
As a element of the circulation plan, the plan supports goals set forth by following the goals and policies. The goal that it achieves is it encourages development and use of alternative circulation modes and networks such as pedestrian and bicycle transit for the convenience of the public and in order to reduce motor vehicle traffic on township streets. That's a goal that's in the circulation element plan. It also promotes the policy in the plan that provides an interconnected pedestrian bicycle pathway throughout the township with particular emphasis on interconnections between recreational uses and schools. So again, it does capitalize on our big investments in open space that have been going on for the last several decades. It also promotes the policy to improve pedestrian accessibility in areas of the township where pedestrian traffic is encouraged, business areas, community recreation areas, and municipal campuses. The plan is broken up into several different areas. However, another portion of the plan that is important is begins to design and safely accommodate all users, including cars, pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit. Right now, there's a lot of bicyclists and walkers in our town, but this provides a safer mode of transportation for them. Bicycle and pedestrian amenities can be retrofitted in existing roadways, incorporated as complete roadway construction, or in the construction of new roads, which we're seeing happening right now on Whippany Road, which is part of this plan. The plan does promote sufficient sidewalk widths for comfortable pedestrian passage, safe, visible, and ADA compliant street crossings. There'll be street trees, benches, sidewalk rest areas, parking for vehicles, including cars and bicycles, and well-marked safe public transit stops, and maybe we'll get some covered areas or something in that as well. So it is a plan that promotes a philosophy where you're maximizing your streets. It's no longer just for cars or just for sidewalks. It's maximizing those streets for several modes of transportation. As I said, the plan does have an east-west and north-south spine. Phase 1A and 1B is the beginning of the implementation of the north-south spine. And Mayor, as you had indicated, it does connect many things. It connects us with Morristown. It connects us with the Frelinghuysen Arboretum. It connects us with the library. It connects us with the community gardens, Central Park, Veterans Park, and again, it does provide a very good connection between the two areas of our town, Whippany and Cedar Knolls, and begins a realization of those investments we've made with town money on open space. It also begins an investment in community building, and it certainly is an investment in economic development. So not only does the passage of this ordinance begin to accomplish many of the things that we've worked hard to put together in this plan, but certainly it is the realization of all the hard work that has been done by the Township Committee and the Open Space Committee in acquiring sites that now can be connected and used more efficiently by more people in town. So I would, if I haven't already telegraphed it, I would certainly be in favor of the passage of the ordinance, and I do think this is a massive move forward towards a very important part of creating safe, effective sidewalks throughout the town, and certainly creating a creative effort to reduce traffic and connect our municipality as a community. So you can pass it now that I'm done.
I think you made a very, very good presentation, Art, as I expected you would. And this, for some of us, might know that the seeds of this go back quite a few years. A gentleman by the name of Al Kent with the county and created something called Patriot's Path. And Patriot's Path began on the, no pun intended, the road of the trails. And some of this was completed at that time. And since for quite a few years, not much work had gone on. But this phase one that we're entering into now and that we're about to vote on will connect from the Arboretum over to Bayer. And much of the path has already been completed but needs improvement, which is good from a cost standpoint. John can speak to the funding on this, but I just wanted to correct the record on one area. There was a comment made at a last meeting by one of our residents that the mayor had said that this project is going to be for free. I want to correct the record only to the extent that that statement was not correct by the individual, and if anything at all was said is that this project was going to be funded by dollars that weren't necessarily tax dollars. But on that note, John, who's been very intimate with this, can speak to the funding, and I think he should for a moment so the residents understand. John?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Infante, for coming out tonight and expressing your perspective. I know you've worked very hard on this. I know, in fact, that you have taken on the charge to address the Morris County-wide to the opportunity at hand for connectivity plans, and you were instrumental in getting onto the ballot an initiative, a referendum that was, I think, voted positively on by over 60% of the residents within Morris County, and that specifically was to allow for open space money, some $55 million arguably, that the county was sitting on, that money could be used for trail systems of connectivity. We are eagerly awaiting the opportunity to pursue those funds for the entire build-out of the trail system in Hanover Township, while at the same time this first portion of the connectivity trail would be funded through a combination of open space money as well as money from private sector contribution as well as capital funding. And Mr. Esposito, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those are the three funding sources.
Yes.
Okay. So again, we thank you for bringing this strategic initiative forward and coming out this evening and speaking so eloquently in support of it.
Thank you.
Art. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public who'd like to be heard at this time?
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany. Three things. First two are rather brief. First thing, to the extent that it's helpful, I fully concur with everything that Art said about this plan. And to the extent that the public usually thinks that these things just kind of happen, if you don't have a torchbearer who has a high degree of passion and has friends and other supporters that help and have the most unbelievable patience and follow through, something like this would never happen. So a big thank you to Art and the other folks that he mentioned that were involved in this. Second thing is a question. I was at the Morris County Freeholders meeting last night, and they made a comment about something in Hanover. I just wanted to share it and see if you had see if it's correct and if you had any additional information on it. They mentioned that the pond at Malapartis is one of two sites in the county where West Nile virus was found recently. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I have not heard such a report from our health department, and usually we would get those advisories or memos immediately.
There is one case of West Nile that's been reported in town, but I'm not sure
If it's related, yeah.
I think they went around and they took samples at known standing water sites, and I'm almost 100% positive they mentioned the water.
They identified Malapartis Pond as
the park, the water at, and I just assumed it was the pond, sitting water.
I can't verify that, Jim, but
So I just wanted to share that in case you didn't have it. I mean, it just was talked about last night. They could have got the report at 5 o'clock yesterday. I don't know, but I thought you may have information. If not, I figured I'd share that with you.
Be assured that the administrator or I will be in touch with our health officer first thing in the morning. Yeah,
Okay.
that's for sure, because we want to know about that. But usually we would get reports on that immediately, and I have no such knowledge, and nor do you at this
yeah,
point.
well, I've heard that there could be one case, but it's not verifiable.
Not
yet.
verifiable, okay.
They didn't say that the case was not verifiable. They talked about it as if it was a definite, so I wanted to share that with you. The other thing that that's going on with the Freeholder Board, which I'd like to share with you, is back in, I believe, March or early April, at a Freeholders meeting, the freeholders had to make a decision on something known as the North Jersey plan. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a regional group made up of several counties in the northwest portion of New Jersey. And this commission, or whatever that they're trying to form, this entity, they basically put a gun to the head of our Freeholder Board and the other counties and gave them a very short notice of several days to agree to a plan that was some 150 pages long. And I give the Freeholder Board credit. There were 6 people there. The freeholder director was out sick, but the 6 freeholders there decided to summarily reject. They decided to ask for a 60-day extension to comment on the plan before it was approved.
Do you know the substance of the plan, Jim? What was-
Generally, I'll give you that in a second. They decided that if they didn't get the 60-day extension, they would summarily reject the plan, which we give them a lot of credit for. A lot of the citizens, maybe about 15 of us that go there regularly, put a lot of pressure on them to do that. So I commend them for doing that. Now it's time to actually make a resolution on that. What it is it's a plan that basically creates another level of government between the county and the state, a regional level of government. They're talking about it now as it's a voluntary, cooperative type plan, but like a lot of other things that start out as a voluntary thing where groups get together, like the Highlands Group, the Pinelands Group, and some of these other entities, all of a sudden they become a bureaucracy, and they're looking for major funding, either through a gasoline tax or transfer of funds from other transportation and development funds of the state, basically our tax money, and they want to put it in the hands of this regional group. It's a form of centralized planning that takes away some of the planning rights and responsibilities of lower levels of government and brings it to a higher level of government. Right now it's being positioned as a voluntary group, but in reading through the 150 or some odd pages, not many people read through it, but it smacks of some of these other sustainable New Jersey plans and these other type plans which are designed to concentrate populations in urban areas and create more and more and more open space, as if there's not enough open space in the state. A third of the state is open space, 25% or more of our county is open space. These do-gooders, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
they've submitted this material only to freeholder boards?
They
on the
submitted
county
to the
level?
freeholder board. I don't know who else got it, but it's
So
several
it goes
counties.
beyond Morris County.
It's Morris County, Essex County, Hudson County.
Well, you said the magic word.
I think in Union County.
When you mentioned Essex, you just,
Right. And quite frankly, some of the freeholder board members see the bigger picture where the money gets concentrated in this group and gets redistributed. And where does it get redistributed? To the urban areas. And they want it for education and transportation and development of populations. I mean, you have to read the report to see this. But anyway, the bottom line is that they tabled they were going to make a resolution to memorialize rejecting it last night. And the freeholder director, Kathy DiFilippo, who's actually the liaison that goes to these meetings, she buys into a lot of that stuff, hook, line, and sinker from her comments, and we're not sure how that vote's going to go. It looks like 3-3, and the other vote will decide how it goes. So I wanted you to make the board aware of it, so perhaps Mr. Giorgio could contact the county and get a copy of it. They have it in PDF form.
Jim,
North
to
Jersey.
interrupt you, but several months ago, another resident of the town spoke to the Township Committee about this so-called group. And Blaze and I actually spoke to the Director of
Is that
Planning
Barbara?
up on the county level,
Dina.
Leary.
Yeah.
Dina Leary.
And we were kind of suspect and adamant about the whole thing, and I believe Blaze may have a copy in his possession, but we did not take a position in favor of this because it's just,
Okay.
there's too many questions yet to be answered, and
That's the way the residents feel that spoke.
it appears that there's to remove a degree of home rule
Exactly.
over this whole
Well,
thing.
that's why I'm wondering what the
Which
purpose or
is-
objective is, because it sounds
That's
to
something
me,
we like.
as you just described, another level of bureaucracy or government on this thing to oversee us at a cost, and chipping away again at local home rule.
But that's not the stated objective. The stated objective is by working together, we can do better planning for education and transportation and all that. That's the stated goal. But if you read through it, you read through it, page 100, there's some really interesting things there that tell about funding.
Well,
and
there's some wisdom in regional planning for all the right reasons.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
if
but
it truly is voluntary.
if it-
And the secret is on an individual project, let the entities that are involved come together and do agreed, like we do with shared services. Don't create another level of government.
Right.
Which takes a pot of money from, supposedly donations and corporate things, but you know where it usually comes from. They even talk in there.
There is already a regional plan association.
I'm familiar
So why
with-
should there be a need for another bureaucratic layer?
Right.
when
So
there is
you're
a
aware of it.
bona
I just wanted to reiterate that right now, we got a 2-week window to perhaps influence the freeholders in some way to take a stand and follow through on what they said, that they were going to reject this. They got the gun put to their head, and, to the extent that they go along with this, we don't have a choice then. So if the...
Well,
if-
if Regional Field hasn't reached out to us for any opinions or input.
No.
We haven't been solicited as municipalities through our administrations to comment. There hasn't been a period of comment, et cetera. What is it? This is going to operate in the blank, in the dark?
Except, Mayor, that Blaze and I did, make our feelings known, I think, to...
Well,
Dean
you got a
O'Leary.
copy of this, you got a copy of this, from a
official.
resident, but,
Obviously, there was no official communication from the
Nothing from
county
the county.
or anyone.
Yeah.
It was brought to our attention by another resident.
Right.
So there was no solicitation officially by a government
Right.
for our comments.
And we quite frankly thought this was dead 3 months ago when they said, if we don't get the extension, at least to look at it in depth, we're going to summarily reject it. But now they're waffling, they're getting weak knees, so I just wanted you to know about that. So if you wanted to make a comment on it to the Freeholder Board,
well,
now would be the time.
Based upon what our planner has commented and the administrator has commented on, I think the Township Committee would probably want to respond to the freeholders with a position.
Just wanted to make you aware of
Yeah,
it,
which
in
we'll
case you wanted to
discuss.
take some
Which we'll
action on that.
discuss. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Floor is still open, if anyone else would like to address the committee at this time. That's your second time, Art, that's it.
It's at 2 seconds. I just want to get on, Art Linfanti, 2902 Appleton Way. I just want to get on the record that my last count, there were 7.3 billion people on this planet. And I just want to say, for the record, there is one person on this planet that believes I'm patient, and he's sitting right here, and I just want that on the record. So I think that's the only person on the planet that thinks so. But then, thanks again for giving me time to speak.
Thanks, Art. Okay, if there are no other comments and no other members of the public, a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Administrator?
Okay, we have one item of communication. We have a letter from Bill Byrne. It's a letter of resignation as a Class 4 member of the Planning Board. May we have a motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. The following departmental reports available for public inspection. They include the report of the Chief of Police on all activities conducted by the department in July. The Superintendent of Public Works, Buildings and Grounds Department has submitted 2 reports on all projects and activities conducted by all divisions of Public Works during the month of July. We have the CFO's statement of summary of budget revenues as of the 13th of August today. And finally, we have the report of the Township's Human Resource Specialist for her activities during the month of July. And all those reports are available for public inspection in the Administrator's office. As we continue, ladies and gentlemen, item number 7, the approval of Township Committee minutes for the regular Township Committee meeting of July the 9th and the bid reception committee meeting of this past Tuesday, August the 11th. We have a motion for approval.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue now with the public hearings on the following ordinances. The first is docketed as ordinance number 19-15, establishing the salaries of the captain and lieutenants for calendar years 2014, 15, 16, and 17. We have the proof of publication that the ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the July 16th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion to convene the public hearing?
Second.
Motion, and second, on roll call, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Is there anyone in chambers wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 19-15? Seeing none, hearing none, may we have a motion to close the public hearing? We have a motion by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call to close the public hearing, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Now, on adoption, be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, establishing the compensation and salaries of the captain and lieutenants for calendar years 2014, 15, 16, and 17, be passed on final reading, and that a notice of the final passage of the ordinance be published in the August 20th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion on adoption?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gallagher, second by Mr. Capola. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco,
Aye.
Mr. Capola, and Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So adopted. Yep. Ordinance number 20-15 amends and supplements ordinance number 15-15, which established a new chapter 194 entitled Regulations Governing Unattended Children and Animals in Vehicles, and we had to make a minor modification dealing with signage, and that is the reason for the amendment. The ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the July 16th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion to
So moved.
conduct the public hearing? So moved by Mr. Francioli, seconded by Mr. Capola. On roll call for the public hearing, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Is there anyone present wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 20-15?
Motion to close?
Seeing none, hearing none, we have a
Second.
motion to close. Second. On roll call to close, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
On adoption, be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, amending and supplementing ordinance number 15-15, which established a new chapter 194 entitled Regulations Governing Unattended Children and Animals in Motor Vehicles, be passed on final reading, and that a final notice of the final passage of the ordinance be published in the August 20th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion on adoption?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Francioli, seconded by Mr. Capola. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So adopted.
I always find it incredible that we have to adopt ordinances to do some things that are just fundamentally right. With the safety of children and the safety of pets and animals and hot cars, and the fact that it still continues to this day with all the notoriety that's been getting just boggles one's mind. But this ordinance is in place. I'm glad that Hanover took the initiative to get it into place, and I hope other townships will follow suit. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome, Mayor. Ordinance 21-15 amends and supplements the job classification guide known as Schedule B, set forth in Salary Ordinance 10-2015, with the inclusion of a new title position of full-time engineering CAD operator under Job Group 9. The ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the July 16th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion on the public hearing for ordinance 21-15?
Second.
So moved by Mr. Capola, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Is there anyone present wishing to be heard concerning ordinance number 21-15? Seeing none, hearing none, may we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Gallagher.
Second.
Second by Mr. Faramasco. On roll call, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Now on adoption, be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, amending and supplementing the job classification guide known as Schedule B, as set forth in Salary Ordinance 10-2015, with the inclusion of a new job position title of full-time engineer CAD operator under job group 9 be passed on final reading, and that a notice of the final passage of the ordinance be published in the August 20th issue of the Daily Record. We now have a motion on adoption.
So moved. So moved.
We have a motion and second by Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Francioli. On adoption, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Aye.
So adopted. Ladies and gentlemen, ordinance number 22-15 authorizes the construction of the Phase 1A and 1B of the connectivity pedestrian and bicycle trail system, and further appropriates the sum of $225,000 from the Open Space Trust Fund account, the Capital Improvement Fund of 2015, and also a contribution from a developer, all in accordance with the financing of this project. May we now have a motion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion, we have a second for a public hearing. We'll also note for the record that the ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the July 16th issue of the Daily Record. So we now have a motion for public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to be heard? Ordinance 22-15. Sure, you may.
Yeah, I'd like to just say something on this. You know, Jim mentioned Art, you really did a great job with this. People don't realize what it took. People also don't realize how long ago you started this process when we didn't have any revenue source to do it. And it made it very difficult. So when people concern themselves with thinking of our redevelopment and some of the new rainbows we get in town, and people that are willing to contribute to such a worthy project, it should be known that this all works together as one. Back in 09 and 10, we couldn't really do anything, as much as we would have loved to. All right, so I thank you for all the work you did on it, really appreciate it. But we have to also be thankful for being fortunate enough to get some of this development that we currently have, and the redevelopment from these companies that are being generous to support projects such as this.
Very well said. Very well said, George.
Any other comments from the public?
Motion to close.
We have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Faramaska, seconded by Mr. Gallagher to close the public hearing. On roll call, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Yes.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And now on adoption, be it resolved that an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, authorizing the construction of Phase 1A and Phase 1B of the Township's pedestrian and bicycle connectivity trail system, and further appropriating the sum of $225,000 from the Township's Open Space Trust Fund account, the Capital Improvement Fund of 2015, and all prior years, and the Trust Fund account for the financing of the project, be passed on final reading, and that a notice of the final passage of the ordinance be published in the August 20th issue of the Daily Record. May we now have a motion
So
on
moved.
adoption? We have a motion by
Second.
Mr. Faramaska, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So adopted. And ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, we have one final ordinance for public hearing. And this is Land Use Ordinance number 23-15, amending and supplementing Chapter 166 of the Code, entitled Land Use and Development Legislation, by limiting the locations and circumstances under which the sale of alcoholic beverages may be sold on premises for consumption. We'll note for the record that the ordinance was submitted to the Township's Planning Board for referral, and we have a letter from the Planning Board on that. We also have a letter from the County Planning Board that the ordinance was filed as required by the municipal land use law, and the ordinance was also sent to all the 5 contiguous municipalities. The letter from the Planning Board on ordinance number 23-15 reads as follows. Dear Mr. Giorgio, At its July 14th, 2015 meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and discussed Ordinance 23-15, which had been referred by the Township Committee as required by the Municipal Land Use Law at NJSA 40:55D-26A. Ordinance 2315 would amend and supplement Chapter 166 of the Township's Code by limiting the sale or serving of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the same premises to certain eating and/or drinking establishments. The Planning Board has determined that Ordinance 2315 is substantially consistent with the master plan. Although the land use element of the master plan is silent on the subject of alcoholic beverages, the land use element recommends that certain uses that commonly serve alcoholic beverages as part of their operation be permitted, such as restaurants. Ordinance 2315 does not amend the permitted uses, and therefore the Planning Board does not consider Ordinance 2315 to be inconsistent with the master plan. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on Ordinance 23-15. Very truly yours, Robert Nardone, Chairman, on behalf of the Planning Board.
Mr. Administrator, Council may have comment on this.
Yes, Mayor, after speaking further with staff, in particular planning as well as some other departments, we may have some suggestions to modify the ordinance before it's adopted. So I wanted to ask the governing body if they would consider to table this to the second meeting in September, so that by the first meeting in September we'll have those comments and some minor changes to the ordinance, so that we can give you the opportunity to review them to see if you're in favor of them.
I'll move to table it to the second meeting in September.
Second.
Okay, just as a matter of clarification, Fred, we're going to table, but we're going to carry the public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Faramaska.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gallagher to carry to the meeting of September the 10th. So it is tabled at this time. On roll call to table and carry, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Capola. And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now as we continue, we have ordinances for introduction, ordinance numbers 24-15, 25-15, and 26-15, that we can take as a consent agenda because they all have the same public hearing date, which is the next regular Township Committee meeting on the 10th of September. So all of you, at this point, are there any questions from any members of the governing body concerning ordinance 2415, 2515, or 2615? Hearing none, then as a consent agenda, may we have a motion to introduce all those three ordinances to the meeting of September 10th, at which time a public hearing will be conducted on each ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Faramaska, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for the three ordinances as a consent agenda, Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska,
Aye.
Mr. Capola, and Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, item number 9, also as a consent agenda, we have resolutions A through resolutions AA and BB on page 4. Are there any questions from members of the governing body concerning any of the resolutions?
Joe, I have a
Yes,
couple
sir.
comments, if I may.
Sure.
I've never commented on the consent agenda before, but number one, looking at B, the police department's drive sober or get pulled over, the statewide crackdown. George, if we can get more information on that, I'd like to share that with the public through the Substance Awareness Council. I think that's a great resolution that we're
We
supporting.
do that every year at this point in time.
And if we can get information on it, I'd like to share it. Also, I'm very happy to see that we're appointing 3 new crossing guards with the School and Park Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. We do understand more than ever that they are on the front line, keeping our kids safe, crossing at Hanover Township's worst intersections. And the last 2 I want to comment on is we have 2 very good people, Mike Leone and Trish Martin, that want to come into the Substance Awareness Council. They've been asking us for a while, and they're getting appointed tonight, so thank you very much, everybody. They're going to be a nice addition to our group.
Excellent.
Those are my comments.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions?
Okay, motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by the
Second.
mayor, second by Mr. Faramasca on roll call for approval of the resolutions as consent agenda.
I'm not sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a point. On this consent agenda, we do have a new, police officer that is gonna be being approved. And so I'll save the time when he gets sworn in. The gentleman is Michael D. Burns from, Compton Lake. He currently works at Palisades Interstate Parkway Police. He's worked for the New Jersey Parole Board on Sex Offenders Management Unit, Security Officer, Holy Name Hospital. He's a graduate of Seton Hall University with a BA in Criminal Justice. He's also a former captain, platoon leader with the U.S. Army Ranger Airborne School. That's got my vote right away. Notably, he's got the Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal, Global War on Terrorism Medal, and Iraq Campaign Medal. I think he's going to be a great addition to our police department, and we're going to welcome him next month.
Thank you, George.
He'd be your 30th member, George, right?
Yes,
Yeah, good.
thank you. And I thank the committee.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Francioli, seconded by Mr. Faramasca on roll call now for the consent agenda. Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Mayor Francioli.
Aye.
So approved. And then on page 4 and 5, we have the listing of raffle applications for approval, also as a consent agenda. May we have a motion for approval?
Move they be
We
approved.
have a motion, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. And the final important item on the administrator's agenda is the payment of bills, $7,903,516.58.
So
Second.
moved.
Gotta pay the
Motion,
bills.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, want the motion from the committee to open the floor.
So moved.
Motion to open moved by Mr. Faramasca. Is that seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, the floor is open. Anyone who would like to comment at this time can do so from the podium, giving us your name and address for the record.
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany, New Jersey. Just a quick question. I know you had it on the agenda for the 7:30 session. Could you just give a quick update in terms of what's going on with the intersection at Whippany Road and Parsippany Road, the construction?
That, Jim, you're absolutely right. It is on our agenda for discussion tonight with the committee. We have not reached that point yet, but for the purposes of this public session, I personally have concerns with what I see not happening. And regarding the not only the intersection, but the road widening and the frontage that goes all the way across down past MetLife's construction to Eden Lane. Telephone poles we see have been installed, but from my understanding, and I'll get a briefing from our engineer, I'm sure, in a short while, must be relocated once again for the road widening. And that road widening goes past the funeral establishment, Braviac and Bradley down there, and I'm very, very personally disappointed over the inconvenience that we put this business through. The frontage in front of that business has been disrupted now for months. It's intolerable, and I personally am going to be asking for some answers tonight. That's where we are, but thank you for bringing it up. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Seeing none, hearing none, motion to close that portion of the
So
meeting? Moved and seconded. Okay. All right, gentlemen, from the Township Committee's point of view, any other comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have two. I'd like to highlight two initiatives. One I'll label the Master Plan for Infrastructure Development. Whereas the past two winters have been exceptionally brutal within the state of New Jersey, it's wreaked havoc on our roads, placing significant stress on those roads. The engineering department, with the support of the Hanover Township Committee, will be taking on a master plan initiative to restore Hanover's roads. In 2015, 4 roads will be completed: Griffith, Hendricks, Hamilton, and the much-needed Eden from Jefferson to Boulevard. In 2016, we will undergo an assessment of roads. We'll prioritize the roads, and we'll develop plans to greatly expand the number of roads which we will restore in the year 2016. Second initiative is called, it's under safety, I call it Operation Streetlight. Whereas working streetlights are an essential part of safe neighborhoods, Committeeman George Coppola, Public Safety Director, and myself are making an appeal of help from our public, from our residents, to report streetlights that are out. Streetlights that are out near their home, or streetlights that are being obscured by tree branches. So in the event there is a streetlight that you notice that's either out or being obscured by tree branches, we're asking you to please document the address or the pole number of that streetlight and notify the Hanover Police dispatchers at 973-428-2513 in an effort to promote public safety. Mayor, that concludes my commentary.
Thank you, John. George?
Yeah, something I want to comment on. Most recently, I had 3 of my friends relocate. These are older seniors like myself, and opening up their homes now to the younger generation, which is nice. It's nice to see the influx coming in. 2 of them moved actually out of town. 1 moved into town, into a smaller unit to live in, him and his wife. But you know, when I stopped over by these 3 individuals that purchased, I gave them a copy of Hanover Happening, which they were thrilled about to receive it. And I think really want to acknowledge Mr. Giorgio, Kathy Iacuzzi, for the great job for the past 30 years that they have been doing on this particular item, the Hanover Happening. Each year it gets better and better. And this year is really beautiful. It has all of the phone numbers, a lot of what's going on in town. And you have to thank Mr. Giorgio, Kathy. They do all the assimilating of the data, editing it, and this information coming to them from Landmark, Green Team, Cultural Arts, Substance Awareness, other committees within the department and the town, and different departments and volunteers. So I would like to, I know on behalf of the Township Committee, say thank you to Mr. Giorgio for putting the time and effort, both he and Kathy, and I'm sure everyone else that assists us on a great job they do with this document.
It's a good piece. Yeah, we're nicely done. You know, it's quite an effort, and Joe this year had got cooperation with the formatting, which is fantastic. And I'm happy to say that you're going to see it quarterly at your homes again. For some time we had cut back on this, and we're depending on web use, etc. We've got to remember that many in our community, believe it or not, you may not believe it, but still don't turn on that computer in the morning and punch in their password. So this is another way to get the message onto the kitchen table, and it's going to come to you again quarterly. And Joe, great job. So really good there.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have any comments?
Yeah, believe it or not, tonight I'll be pretty quick, but I also want to say that I'm glad periodically we do acknowledge Joe Giorgio and our staff and the
Only
municipal
periodically,
building,
though.
because I don't think people realize how many times a day we all call Joe and say, Joe, do you have a minute? And before you know it, you're going back and forth. Joe, thank you for everything, and that Hanover Happenings is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
And are
you.
you putting that timer on for me, Joe?
Trying to shut it off.
Actually, you have another 3 minutes and 31 seconds.
Yeah, we do. I'll start it off in 5 minutes quick.
I'd just like to say that the Hanover Township DPW and Bear had a park beautification day at Central Park. The building eaves were painted by Bear employees with Bill Brittle from the DPW. The gazebo had new plantings installed by Bear employees and Brian DePrimo. The playground had certified wood fiber installed by Bear employees with Gary Falkman and Brian Ferran. The beds and trees were mulched by Bear employees with Jack Kuba. And the mulch product was loaded and dumped in areas by Pete Giordano. It was a very successful day. They completed the whole park in one day. It looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the recreation was involved also. We had a lot of Hanover Township residents over there, and it really looks great. So thank you, everybody, for being involved in that. I also want to say that the School and Park Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will hold their annual public forum, but now we're going to go to twice a year. We're going to do one in the fall and one in the spring, so we're not going to call it the annual anymore. It will be right here, Thursday, October 29th at 7 p.m. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Great. All right. Thank you, Tom. That sounds good. Tom brought up the beautification of Central Park, and it was a wonderful day that Wednesday. Our thanks to Bay, our thanks to Dan Appel for bringing over his employees and so many of the people from that particular division that worked on that park. They planted shrubs, did a lot of mulch work, and they've done so many wonderful projects. We can't thank Bayer enough, and this is just a small recognition for all the wonderful things they've done for us, and we have great plans for other things that they'd like to be involved with. So, Dan, thank you, and thank you and your staff for being a part of that day. We can't close this night without remembering the passing of a very dear friend of ours and the wife of past committeeman, past mayor of Hanover Township, Lorraine Radice, Tony Radice's wife, passed away this past week. We're sorry for her loss, and our prayers go with the family. You saw, in response to a lot of comments that we've gotten through Facebook and others, that both George Capola, myself, Joe Giorgio, the administrator, Captain Waldron, etc., got together this week with the Director of Family Services from the county in regard to issues that we're having with the Connell Lodge here in Hanover Township. Weekly Regional News has done several stories on this, and it's certainly been uppermost on the radar screen for Hanover with the issues that we've been having and the amount of intense police work it's taken to monitor or babysit this area, and it's taken us away from the general policing of our township. Not a good thing. We did come, I think George would agree, we had a very successful meeting with the director. It is agreed that we will now use a monitoring system and stay in touch with the county and let them know individuals that we have concerns or problems with, and then we have their assurance that the county will remove those recipients to other residences, etc., in the township. So we'll be watching it very closely. We hope this is a start of getting that all straightened out and cleaned up. That's, gentlemen, that's all I have, unless you have something else.
It took enough that the administrator came too, John Bonanni.
John Bonanni was there as well,
So
and yes, in fairness, John was there and also made contributions, thoughts of helping us with security on the site, offering perhaps to look into whether or not the Sheriff's Department could lend a hand with this as well. We don't want it to go that far. We want to nip this in the bud. We want to be proactive on this, and more security is not on the site is not the answer. I think dealing with the problem head on is the answer, and eliminating the issues of the kind of residents that type of living establishment attracts. So we'll deal with it. That's what I have. Is there no other comment from the Township Committee? Then I'm going to motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Check the calendar. Maybe you have lights. No lights on Pond and Forest.
I thought you were talking about this water.
No, power outage.
Oh,
Power out.
Now?
Brian said it went out. Keep cool.
You're still out?
Yes, still out.
The weather is good.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.